Hey everybody, it's 143.2 The Foot, Camp Hilo After Dark. I'm Brad Bibbles, as always. This is Game Master Hilo, as always. Game Master Hilo, welcome to the show.
Hey Brad, good to be back. I'm always excited to talk about the show, talk about what's been going on, you know?
Hey, I'm right there with you. Now, I think I speak for everybody, viewers out there, when I say that this challenge might have been one of the more creative and confusing challenges that your Imagineers have cooked up for an episode of Camp Hilo. What was your thinking there?
Yeah, some of the feedback we got in some early focus groups for this challenge, as well as kind of our weekly check-in with the campers themselves, confirms exactly that idea. People loved this challenge. They thought it was one of the more creative ones, and it also was a way for many of the team members to come together, and actually work together on something that, some of the previous challenges, like, say, the communication one, that's, it was like legs of a race, right? They weren't all racing together. They were passing a baton and then going individually. So people really liked the teamwork and camaraderie that this challenge brought, I thought, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think it played out pretty well on the big screen. Why those particular locations? Why did the alien choose those particular locations?
Yeah, and just for the viewers at home who may be a little bit behind in their tape recording of today's episodes, to give an explanation, this week was this was Lost in Paradise. This was a challenge we cooked up where we took some screenshots that our observation systems have picked up of alien life forms in different locations around the planet. And we tasked our campers with doing some early grunt work for what is going to be their, coming up next week and weeks in the future, their URL advanced license. So we wanted to see if they were capable of doing this. And so we put together some data from various spots around the globe, and we asked them to figure out where those locations are, and then use those locations on a map to then pinpoint an old derelict alien base, right? Mm-hmm. But why these locations? These were the locations that we had a lot of data on, and coincidentally, we found that they perfectly triangulated, keyword there, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, to form the general location of the aliens' base, which was indeed inside of the Bermuda Triangle. So,
you think
pretty interesting.
You think they're trying to communicate with you? Is that what I'm getting here? Some sort of
the aliens themselves?
Some sort of indirect way to tell you something. Why you? Why not me?
I've spoken with aliens a few times. This isn't our first rodeo dealing with aliens on Camp Hilo. Plargthrax and Tychicus, these are two people that we know and love. I've talked to them a couple of times. Due to the zoning of the island, I'm not really allowed to elaborate much further. Sorry about that, Brad. But hey, maybe we can get on the show.
What do you say to the? What do you say to those who find it odd and strange that to date you've refused all communications from world governments about this alien question? I'm a loyal fan of the show, and I have always been confused as to why our universal friends chose you and Camp Hilo, and your Imagineers of all people, to communicate with exclusively.
Yeah, Brad, at this time, due to the jurisdiction of Area 47 and the island on, underneath that jurisdiction, I'm not allowed to comment on anything regarding the island's importance to aliens at this time. I may have to wait until that gets declassified. I'm sorry.
Declassified by who, Game Master Hilo?
Brad, that would be Senator Johnson.
Well, the more you know. Moving on.
Yeah. The challenge. Let's talk about the challenge. Aliens. They're silly. They're just floating around, those little guys. But yeah, we gave our teams 6 dossiers filled with information about particular locations that they then had to piece information together and come back to us with the triangulated location of the Bermuda Triangle. So that was ultimately the task.
And
once both
again,
teams, I think, did really well.
Both teams did really well. The one team did better than the other team. And as with last week, the Wolves came out on top once again.
Yeah, this was the second time in a row that the Witless Wolves won, and they're at 3 out of 5.
What do you think is working for them?
Yeah, I think I think this week we saw a lot. We saw a lot of passion from the Witless Wolves. We saw drive, and I do want to make a comment to something I mentioned very early on. I believe in our first episode of Camp Hilo After Dark, but this was also a time where my opinion started to shift. I made a very early comment that the Wolves kind of felt like, if this was like a heroes versus villains series, I felt like the Wolves gave off a lot of like hero energy, and I thought the Ferrets gave off a lot of villain energy. But this week completely flipped that on my head. I think there was a lot of passion, a lot of drive, and the villains here showed up. The Wolves showed up in numbers and had just a decent bit of cooperation when working on this challenge together. They delegated really well, and I think just the fact that they had a couple more people in the call at the time of the challenge, really kind of pushed them over the edge of the Ferrets. But it was that ferocity that really took me aback this week, and I'm starting to wonder if the antagonistic side of the Wolves is going to continue to come out, and and they're going to constantly heckle the Ferrets now that they've won 2 in a row, or are they going to be humbled as soon as the Wolves lose their next challenge, right?
I think, speaking of antagonistic energy and sides, I think that we saw something happen during the ceremony on the other side of the teams. They were trying to determine who it is that they were going to send packing. Jordan. What was that?
Jordan. Yeah, Jordan's an interesting case, and we talked about it last week with the sort of head-to-head butting of Steven and Jordan. This really started to this made the prophecy come true, right? In terms of what I was expecting to happen. Jordan and Steven kind of came to a head here, and Jordan's mouth was a little too big and it ran a little too fast. They started talking to a lot of different campers with a lot of different plans, all of which seemed to be half-baked, and it really kicked them in the butt. As
the question is why. I'm as we all know, loyal viewer of this show, and despite the rockiness of your and my relationship over the years, Camp Master Hilo, I tune in every year. I tune in every season, every episode, and we've seen tied votes, we've seen revotes, but 2 in a row. I don't think we've seen that before.
Yeah, I don't believe we have. So it was
It
an
almost
interesting
felt.
strategy.
It almost felt. I
Don't
don't
you
know,
say it?
intentional. Intentional. There seemed to be chaos for the sake of chaos, and it's hard to wrap my head around, what sort of strategy. And maybe it's the pressure. Maybe it's the pressure of the game.
I'll put it in terms that I hope everybody could understand. Jordan, they're an interesting character. They were much more prepared last season when it was a couple of people working together. If that makes sense. This season, we thought Jordan would be all right if we took the controllers away and we let the entity that Jordan is shine. Through some of our early experiments and some of our early challenges.
Experiments. This seems to be another subject where.
Sorry, did I say experiments? Challenges. Challenges.
Message appears to have popped into my telling me that I'm needed in other and so we're gonna have to can't master